Hello, good afternoon. Yali ho. Hello, Renu. Hi, Vandita ma'am. Good evening. Good to see you too. Good evening, Dilip. We'll wait for some more time for a few more people to join before we start the session. Okay, so we waited for 2 minutes and now let's start with the introduction of the session. Till such time, I'm sure some people would join. So, once again, good afternoon, everybody. It's a privilege to be speaking on the platform of our very own NGO called Vesamu Kids Foundation. I welcome the viewers, I welcome the well-wishers of Vesamu Kids Foundation, and it's a lovely day out there. And so, this topic also well-being mantras, I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to what I have got to share. Before I begin the session, a small brief introduction about me. I'm Prabha Shukla. I'm a management graduate with 20 years of work experience, majorly in the field of academics, out of which 15 years has been with Calorex. And so by default, I've been a part of Vesamu Kids. I've seen Vesamu Kids grow from its Panchvati campus to its Bhopal campus, within Bhopal from one campus to two campuses. It's been a lovely journey where I've seen the project grow from less than 50 kids to 100 plus kids. The project, which is meant for not so privileged children, has made such an immense contribution that I would say that these children have truly become privileged by being a part of Vesamu Kids Foundation. Coming back to our topic, mantras of well-being. Why well-being is important? What are the different types of well-being and how to achieve them? Well-being is the experience of health and happiness and prosperity. It includes having good mental health, high life satisfaction, a sense of meaning or purpose, and ability to manage stress. More generally, well-being is just feeling well. Well-being emerges from our own thoughts, actions, and experiences, most of which we have control over. Now, in the face of industrialization, we slowly started turning towards a materialistic society, and we started understanding that our well-being is achievement of more and more material things in our lives. And we forgot that during olden times, when they were very basic, hardly any materialistic things. People were happy with 2 square meals, one house, and networking among the social group available in the town or the village. And there was a high level of contentment. Over the years, like I said, industrialization led to mass production of things, and marketing came, advertising came, and they started selling the products, posing it as, possessing things actually will make you happy. And we started associating our happiness with possessing things. Now, when we look at the current generation and today's kids, it has grown even more with the advent of social media, because you're being, it's there. They're pushing their products all the time on the face. And we have, over the years, forgotten our old values, old system of thinking, and we have started associating acquiring, whether it's high grades, a good job, a house, and even a bigger house, and a car, and even a bigger car, and a set of branded clothes. We have started considering these things bring happiness. And we have forgotten that, that these things can give you temporary pleasure, but they don't bring you long-term happiness. So, for example, when we talk about the younger generation today, they firmly believe that, getting good grades will beget them a very good job. No doubt about it. A good job will help them get a lifestyle which they desire, and this lifestyle will give them happiness. So they have started thinking that, once I get a high-flying job, so I get a certain salary, and then I can buy expensive holidays, I can make a beautiful home, all this at a very young age. And this kind of wanting they have created in their minds. Now, this kind of wanting, research says, doesn't always get you the happiness which you are looking forward to, and this is called a miswanting that we are creating in our minds. So, let's do a reality check. All of us, now that we are of a certain age, we have come to a different kind of a wisdom and understanding. But when we were younger, we were always aspiring. So today, if I am a teacher and if I have joined as a PRT, so before I got the job and I was aspiring to be a teacher and I was aspiring to be a PRT, but I was very happy, extremely thrilled the day I got the job. And after some time, that happiness, somehow fizzled out. And then I started aspiring to be a TGT, and then to be a PGT, and then maybe something else. So, for today's generation, a similar example can be there, that, today I'm aspiring, striving, fighting for good grades among my peer group. And I'm aspiring to get a job which pays 1 lakh rupees. How long do I really relish that? Once I am there in that job, I'm happy for some time, and then I get into a rat race. There's somebody else who's, today I am earning 1 lakh, but somebody else who is earning 1.25, and then somebody else who is earning 1.50, or the people who have studied with me and have passed out, they are getting much higher salary than what I'm getting. And so slowly, I stop enjoying what I have achieved through my hard work. and I start getting negative about my current situation, which I forget that I achieved that with a lot of hard work, and it doesn't matter while I'm constantly seeing about something else which has become my aspiration now. Now, there is no harm in being aspirational, and there is no harm in having dreams. But then, if they diminish our current position and situation, then it is something which is making us negative, and it is not good for our well being. Now, what I spoke about, when we achieve something and we have achieved it and it doesn't matter anymore, this has a scientific term in today's time which is called a hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation is also understood as hedonic treadmill. So it is a concept studied by positive psychology researchers and others who focus on happiness and well-being, that refers to people's general tendency to return to a set level of happiness despite life's ups and downs. Now, you've had an up and you've had a down, but in both the cases, so this hedonic adaptation, when we are talking about the positive side of it, the good thing is that when we've had, if somebody has had a major accident and that person loses one leg, the change in ability can be devastating at first, but people generally tend to return to their pre-accident levels of happiness after the habituation period. So this can be a very positive thing when you've had a negative experience. But when we talk about a positive experience, people who win lottery, so if I got a lottery, I'll be the happiest person in the life. And then after some time, you tend to return roughly to the original level of happiness after the novelty of the win has worn off. It is the same thing in each and every case. Whenever we are excited about something, we are looking forward to something, once we reach there, we achieve that thing, we slowly consider it as normal, and we start craving for something else. So when we are talking about materialistic things, so today I'm set in a pretty decent job, and I always dreamt of having a car, and I say I buy a car worth rupees 4 lakhs, and I'm happy about it for some time, and then my neighbor or my friend buys a bigger or a flashier car, and so I stop enjoying the fruit of my hard labor, the car which I purchased after so much aspiration, and I start aspiring for that neighbor's or friend's car or something even bigger. So when we invest in pleasures and we expect things which are short-lived and materialistic in nature, we get short-term pleasures. But if we want long-term happiness and our well-being, we should invest in gratifications. Gratifications take more effort. You have to build on that. But, it is something which will last with you for a longer time. So, when we talk about, I'll take after some time, how do we minimize the hedonic adaptation? In the meantime, I want to move on to 5 major types of well-being. So there are 5 major types of well-being where we all should work upon. The top of the list today I'm taking is emotional well-being, for a very simple reason. During the COVID times, emotional well-being has taken precedence over any other kind of well-being. Emotional well-being refers to emotional quality and capability to understand emotions, more importantly, our own emotions, and take a hang of our emotions and generate emotions that lead to good feelings. The second type of well being is physical well being. Now, why physical well being is important? Now, if we consider our body as our home where we live in, isn't it? Isn't the body our home where we live in? And the way we take care of our homes, cleaning them regularly, maintaining them, taking care of them, in a similar way, we have to take care of our own body. If we don't do that, and which most of the time we don't do, then we will suffer because our body will give away, and we will not be able to do our day-to-day functions. So for physical, it's very important to have physical well-being. The skills for the various well-beings I'll take up later. The third type of well-being is social well-being. A human being is a social animal. We are gregarious. We cannot live without relationships and interactions and communication. We crave for meaningful relationships, and we crave for acknowledgement and recognition, and we also like to be associated with different groups, like-minded people, and so on. So we are all social people, and so it's very important to have social well-being. The next one is workplace well-being, or for the students it will be well-being in the school, well-being in the college. So what is a workplace well-being? The ability to pursue your interests, values, and purpose in order to gain meaning, happiness, and enrichment professionally. Find your calling. Every day when I'm coming to my workplace, I'm excited about coming here. For a simple reason, I love what I'm doing. And so it should be for the people who go to whether they are going to their school, whether they are going to their college, or whether they are going to their workplace, because a large part of our lives goes into our workplace. I call CalRx my second home because I spend almost 8 to 9 hours of my day in this workplace. The fifth well-being is societal well-being. We all are a part of a society where we have to follow certain codes, conducts, and responsibilities. The ability to actively participate in a thriving community, culture, and environment is basically societal well-being. And we have to create a beautiful balance between all these types of well-being to gain overall well-being. Now, I would like to discuss about how to achieve these 5 types of well-being, the skills needed for these well-beings. So, the first well-being, emotional well-being. We need to develop happiness skills, mindfulness skills, positive thinking skills. How do we develop happiness skill? So there is a small technique which is called savoring. So what is savoring? I'll give a very simple example. Supposing I'm craving for a cone of ice cream, and I'm looking forward to enjoying that cone of ice cream, and so the thought of I'll go out, I'll buy that cone of ice cream, and I'll eat it gives me happiness. when I'm eating the ice cream, I'm enjoying the pleasure of eating the ice cream, it's giving me even more happiness. And if I am enjoying each lick of my ice cream mindfully, I'm present in the moment and I'm enjoying it, that's called savoring. And after I've had my ice cream and I'm going back in the evening, after doing my work and all that, all of a sudden I recall, oh, I had such a yummy ice cream today. So that's savoring. You can develop this skill of savoring consciously. So when you have been, aspiring for a beautiful holiday, so you've been wanting to go for a holiday and you have planned it, enjoyed each moment of planning. You have gone to the destination, enjoyed each moment of being in the destination. And after coming back, when you're there, back to your place, and you're sharing that experience by blogging, thinking, or generally talking to your friend, you're savoring that experience. So savoring is a very important skill for our emotional well-being. And of course, mindfulness. Why mindfulness is important? There's been, unbelievable number of talks on mindfulness, and people who believe in mindfulness would know that it is a very, very important skill, especially in today's time, in the age of social media, when we end up comparing, when we people live for the likes of Facebook. They forget sometimes to enjoy their current, in their present situation. So if I'm on a holiday and I'm just clicking pictures to share on Facebook and social media, Twitter or Instagram, and I'm not enjoying the location itself, and I'm just grumbling about, that this particular post got only 50 likes. Why do I have 500 people on my Facebook page? Then I'm killing my own joy. So being mindful, enjoying your current situation is something which is a very, very important emotional well-being skill. The third skill, although if you Google, you'll find a whole lot of things for emotional well-being. I'm just picking up 2 or 3 in each kind of well-being. The third thing for emotional well-being, which I personally feel, is resilience skill. Now, resilience skill, why it is important? There are times when you have set an expectation, you have set out for a completion of a job, a task which you have to do, it has been given to you, or you have been, asked to do it. You are not able to get it right, or you're not able to achieve what you set out to achieve. And if you, get bogged down by the failure and don't bounce back, it may lead to many kind of mental health problems, depression, suicidal thoughts. There could be so many things. But if you inculcate a skill of resilience within you, you are bound to bounce back, and you are bound to, retry and rethink the situation and try different ways of achieving your target. And you will be, I'm not saying that we all are human, we all are emotional beings, that a setback will not put you down emotionally, but being resilient means you will immediately bounce back. Moving on to our second kind of well-being, physical well-being. So, like I said, this body is our home. So the way we take care of our home, do we take care of our body in the same way? We don't. Honestly telling you, we don't. How many of us consciously exercise? So if, I consider a body with say a car. So you have this beautiful car, well maintained, it has been serviced, it's shining, it's in very good condition. But when you go to start, the engine doesn't start. Our heart is our engine. So if we are not taking care of our body in general, and what do we do most of the time for the, some people are really very enthusiastic about exercising, but most of us are not. Oh, today I'm so tired, there was so much work, I'll do it from tomorrow. Oh, this is, it's the outside is so hot and humid, who's going to go out to exercise? Or there's something very important on television, something, and we keep on putting it aside. In the same way, we treat our stomachs as garbage bins. We keep on, putting about anything, so much junk into our bodies. We are not putting, so if we don't put the right kind of fuel in the car, will it run? So in the same way, if we keep on dumping our bodies with the wrong kind of food, it will not give us nourishment. And an undernourished body, a malnourished body, an unexercised body will start slowly deteriorating. The way if you stop, taking care of your body or your car, it starts crumbling. So in the same way, our body starts deteriorating. So it's very important to take care of our body. We need to detox at times by various means. Fasting is one of the way. And correcting nutritional deficiencies. For exercise, you can have something like a simple walking routine or a yoga or a pranayam. Very, very, very important, especially during COVID times, to be physically fit and to be at the prime of our immunity. Social well-being. How do we build our social skills, and how do we ensure that our social well-being and we are not alienated? Now, if a person feels lonely, slowly that person can go into depression. So it's very important that we don't feel lonely. Now, there are a few people who are lonely, but then they don't get into depression because they are not practicing loneliness. It's called solitude. So all the people who meditate, they enjoy solitude. But people like us, we want somebody to take care of us, somebody to talk to us. In general, just ask our well-being. And that connect we always feel that we should have. And for that, we should have, some connections, a very good friend, a 12 or, a 2 a.m. friend whom you can just pick up the phone and call and pour your heart, or a family member, or some association which is meaningful, so that you don't get lonely. And there are a couple of more skills to reduce your loneliness. You can be, again, savoring is something which will, so if the moment you start feeling depressed and lonely, you can start thinking about something very exciting which has happened in your life. On a day-to-day life also, if you're not, there has to be a feeling of fulfillment. Even if you are having your daily cup of coffee, just, be grateful. How many people in today's time would be having, 3 square meals, happily eating, enjoying coffee? There aren't many. There are a lot of people, unprivileged people, who don't get these privileges. So go back to a thought which brings you back from your sad state. You could maintain a journal where you're writing your happy feelings, and it really helps you. So social well-being. Workplace well-being. It's very important to have workplace well-being. Not all of us are in the jobs which we are doing by choice. There are 2 types of people doing a job. One are people who are by choice, another who are there by chance. Now, if it is a job you have chosen, you obviously enjoy, you just glow, you just love it. But if it is by chance, you had wanted to be possibly, an IAS officer, but you have ended up being an administrator. Now, you don't have a choice now, because we all need to make a living for ourselves. And you have a job. There are so many jobless people out there. So why not start enjoying the job and make the job by chance a job of your choice? So that's the positive way in which you can give a turn around to your work, and you find your purpose in life. And of course, very, very important, maintaining work-life balance. However busy you may be, however demanding your job may be, you have to allocate, consciously build this skill of allocating a little time out for your loved ones, for your family. Because once you retire, you should not have a regret that I never spent time with my family. I was working extra hard while they were growing up. Most of us mothers, we start feeling that emptiness syndrome, and we start feeling guilty about having left our families for longer duration at work. But if you are spending quality time every day, set aside a little time for your aging parents, you will not have regret in your life. So maintain a work-life balance. Coming back to the last well-being, societal well-being. So how important societal well-being is? Like I said, we all are a part of a society and we have responsibilities. So it's not just that we are taking, we also have to give back to the society where we live in. And for that, we should have a certain amount of values and certain amount of positive and, compassion, giving, caring. Trust me, when you give more than the person you are giving, you are benefiting. These two lovely girls whom I mentor in Visamo Kids, trust me, when I meet them, I don't know how happy they are on meeting me, but I come back feeling extremely happy and extremely satisfied. So it is for our own well-being as well. Of course, you're helping people, you're helping society when you're doing a donation, when you're donating blood, when you're doing stuff like that, a lot of happiness comes your way. So create some time in your routine to give back to society in some way or other. It's not always that you have to associate yourself. Kindness on a day-to-day basis is also giving. Caring, just listening to somebody is also a way of giving. So, and the bottom line is there is no magic wand for well-being. There are skills which you need to incorporate in your life. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes an attitude to inculcate well-being in our lives. So, when we are talking about societal well-being, I would like to talk about a very important skill in a day-to-day life which helps us, and it falls into the category of all the 5 well-beings, and I would say it's one top mantra for overall well-being: the feeling of gratitude. When you have a feeling of gratitude, when you're happy and you feel that, oh God, there are so many people who have so many sufferings and don't have an emotional support. I have this amazing friend to talk to. You're taking care of your emotional well-being. When you're grateful to your body for making way to your day-to-day life, you're having gratitude towards your body. When you are making way when you are just doing something a little kind because somebody was kind to you, and you are reciprocating that kindness in your relationship with people, you're taking care of social well-being. And in the same way, if you're grateful to have a job, more so if if the job is something you've been aspiring for and you're loving it, that gratitude takes you a long way. And in case of societal well-being, the gratitude towards this being a part of a country, a society, a country which gives you an identity, a society which is around you, which makes you feel alive. After all, you're not living in a jungle. You're not a lion living alone. So when we are talking about gratitude, and I'm somewhere around the end of this session, I would like to express gratitude for Wesamo Kids. I've seen it grow immensely. I've seen those, kids grow, when they come in the beginning, the habits which they have, and we help them with the habits, and we do a bridging program. And because most of the time come from poor families, and they are supposed to settle down in a different kind of environment now. We do this bridging program, and then when they start growing up, and when they start catching up, and when they pass out, they make a life for themselves. They have been going to the best of institutions. So we have management graduates, we have hotel managers, we have IT engineers, we have professionals, we have dancers, we have sports people. So all of these children who have achieved their dreams thanks to Wesamo Kids. So the gratitude I feel for the people who have contributed to the lives of these children, and the people with whom I have interacted. I may not have interacted with all of them. That doesn't mean, I'll just take a few names because I think they have immensely contributed, not undermining the efforts of other people whose names I may miss, or I may not have interacted with them. So to begin with, Bela Mehta, the first administrator who took care of Wesamo in Panchavati, followed by Beena Desai ma'am, Asha Javeri ma'am, immense contribution, Jaya Kad ma'am, the first academic coordinator, Anuja ma'am, after that, who took care of academics, along with Ami ma'am, who is currently the mother of the Wesamo Kids and has been the one strong pillar of support, Mr. Siddharth Mehta, Mr. Unmesh Dikshit, of course the promoters. And when we started in the beginning, we would not have done well without the tremendous support of our partnering schools, the various school trustees who trusted that we are doing a good job. Initial donors, there wasn't much of a project in the place, but they trusted. Volunteers, we have had unbelievable number of volunteers, right from the age, teenagers to people in their 60s. We could not have been where we are today had they not supported us. Of course, the current head, Sudeshna ma'am, there's been, a whole lot of admin team, the Gruhmatas, Neeru Ben, I've been seeing her for ages. And so many unknown, unseen faces who believed in the project. So with this, I finished the gratitude part of it. Wesamo Kids is Wesamo Kids because of all of you. And of course, if you ask the one mantra for well-being, I would say that well-being is intrinsic and not extrinsic. We do not, when we start depending on other people for our happiness and well-being, it doesn't work. So the ultimate mantra is, you are responsible for your own well-being. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for joining me for this session. I would be happy to see if there are any questions. Let me look at the comments there. I'll just wait for 2 minutes if there are any questions. I hope you found my talk useful. Thank you so much for everybody for the lovely comments out there. I'm very grateful to each one of you for joining me. With this, I end this session. Thank you.